Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Coffee Break. I'm Alistair Mackenzie, as you will see when I get rid of the poster there. And with me, I've got Mike Young, who, as many of you know, is a regular on the weekly Hangout. This is a new time. We're used to sitting here at 5 o'clock UK time and 6 o'clock Mike's time in the Netherlands. So this is going to be an interesting time for us, and we hope a better one for you to be able to join us. So this week we've been off air, as it were, for a week while I was away in Berlin for ITB. And although I did manage to get one pop-out hang-up accomplished there, an interview on a stand, I didn't get nearly as many as I thought I was going to be able to. So anyway, we're back to the normal routine. And what we haven't done for a while is have one of Mike's excellent presentations, guidebook presentations. So we're going to do that. Mike's been exploring in the footsteps of Van Gogh, who this year apparently is being celebrated for the 125th anniversary of his death. Mike, let's go over to you, because you've got a lot of slides to get through. But just explain to us, how far afield are you moving? Because you're not just in Holland, are you?
No, well, on this presentation, we're going to mainly focus on the Netherlands and France. So those will be the locations we're covering, but we're covering 5 locations, 3 in the Netherlands and 2 in France. I'd like to cover more, but basically what we have so far are the places that Gayla and I have been, and when we go to different places, we're fans of Van Gogh, so we always look to see what's going on. Also, as I'll start this off and kind of mention, we've been to Arles, and one of our pages we have Van Gogh in Arles. It's been a very successful page for us. When I was at WTM in London this past year, I met with Pim from Van Gogh Brabant, and he invited me on a tour for this anniversary of his death.
Let's clear up a couple of those missing things. World Travel Market, for those who don't know, is a huge trade show, in effect, for the travel industry. It happens in November in London. And Brabant is a region.
It's a province in the Netherlands. So the Van Gogh Brabant is an organization that promotes sites for Van Gogh in Brabant. So he took me around Brabant, and with that connection, I've also went to several museums as well. One, of course, the Van Gogh Museum, which I had been to several times before, but I went back this year to the Van Gogh Museum, and then also to the Kröller-Müller Museum. So it's a work in progress, but at least now we have enough pages and enough information for someone that wants to get an idea of Vincent's life. How did that aspire? How did he become from this person that was not an artist to now one of the world's most famous artists? And that's what we're going to cover in today's presentation.
Okay, let's go.
I'm going to start with sharing my screen. And can you see everything?
Yep.
So is it full screen now?
It's mostly full. Yes, it is full screen.
Okay. All right, so the title of this series that we're working on is In the Footsteps of Van Gogh, Places That Shaped Vincent's Life. And Gail and I, we're avid travelers, but we're not art historians. We enjoy art, we enjoy history, and of course we enjoy art history, but I just want to preface this is that Gail and I are not art historians. As with anything, when you start out, we would start with the birthplace of a person, and in this case, Van Gogh was born in Zundert. It's a little town close to the Belgian border, and it's southwest of Breda. And you can look in the map and see where that is in relationship to the UK and Rotterdam or Amsterdam. Looking at Zundert, the first thing you'll see is or one of the things you'll see is this small little church. This is the church where Vincent's father was a minister. This church is where Vincent was baptized, and it's one of the remaining buildings that Vincent used in his life in Zundert. Unfortunately, the house where he was born no longer exists, but there is the museum on the same property. That's the Van Gogh house, or the Vincent van Gogh house in Zundert.
It looks quite modern, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, but it is the
It's
original
1853,
church,
yeah.
and it's still in use. But I guess it has somewhat timeless architecture to it. So one of the things as you go there, you'll see the marker on the building that's actually current in the location where his house used to be. It shows he was born here. It's designated his birthplace. Right outside the church, there's the Vincent van Gogh Plain, or the Vincent van Gogh Square. And one of the things you'll see is a monument to him and his brother Theo. Him and Theo were connected through a good portion of their life, and Theo is one of the main reasons why we see works by Van Gogh today, or by Vincent today. Theo supported Vincent financially for becoming an artist. So this bond between the two brothers was a big deal in both Vincent and Theo's life. And another thing we see is the grave of Vincent van Gogh. Now, this is not Vincent van Gogh, the artist. This is Vincent van Gogh's brother, who was stillborn 1 year to the date of when Vincent was born. So Vincent van Gogh, the older, the non-artist, was born in 1852. Vincent van Gogh, the artist, was born in 1853. And it was on the exact same day. Now, as you can imagine, they would celebrate his birthday and the death of his brother, and Vincent every year on his birthday would be dragged to see this tombstone. So, I can only imagine you looking down and seeing your name celebrated on your birthday every year as this stillborn child. It must have not have been a good memory for Vincent. I can only imagine it would be, a negative memory. So that's kind of one of the things you see. And as I mentioned, on the site where he was born, it's now actually turned into a museum. And in this museum, if you see the photo on the left, there's a room where they have a lot of projections. They have some interactive exhibits. And basically what it does is you have, the fare to get in is €6, or the cost to get in is €6. That includes a headset. And there's an option up to 6 languages. So as you go and look at these different items, or these projections, or the family tree, as you see on the right-hand side on the bottom, all of these are being told to you in your own language. So there's not a lot of stuff to read. It's all fed to you via audio or video. So it's a pretty nice little place to go to. And again, €6 is a fairly inexpensive price to get in. Next to that room, up on the top right-hand side of the screen, is a room dedicated to artists that were influenced by Van Gogh. And you'll see some original works, not by Van Gogh, but by these artists that were influenced by Van Gogh. You'll see some quotes, you'll see some videos, and also you'll hear part of the audio tour as well. So it's a really neat little place to visit.
I tell you, is that an image of him on the wall?
It is. It is. That's one of the...
I mean, in the dining room.
3 images of him, and this is the earliest one.
Wow.
So that's a cool thing. You learn about Zundert and how his life was in Zundert. His father there as the minister, them living in the small little vicarage there, and his family. You see the family tree in that little interactive exhibit. Mm-hmm. So moving along, obviously since he was a child there wasn't really any art developed at that location. The next place is Etten-Leur. At that time it was just called Etten. Now the town is called Etten-Leur. It's I guess about a 20-minute drive or so from Zundert. So it's fairly easy to get to. What you'll see... Go ahead, I'm sorry?
I was saying I don't think I've ever heard of it. It's a name that's completely new to me.
Yeah, it's a small little town. This is the start of Van Gogh's career as an artist. This is where he moved here and decided to become an artist, and this is when he started doing some of his drawings, his sketches, and his watercolors. And what you'll see here is the church to the left is where his father was a minister, and the vicarage was on the other side of this church. The little building in front of the church is the information center and the tourist information center and the place where you buy your tickets to go into the Van Gogh church. And looking at one of the then and now, and this is kind of what this series is about, is showing you places that existed then in his eyes and how does this look now. This is one I wish I could have got the exact same angle, but because of buildings there, I was not able to get the same angle, so I got the front of the church. But you can clearly, visibly see that this is the same church with the same tower, the kind of terrace tower, the same clock and everything. So, yeah, this is what we say following in Vincent's footsteps. This is what we mean, that we're able to see the current place as painted by Vincent, or in this case, drawn by Vincent.
It's built up a little since his time.
a little bit, but it's still a fairly small town. And some of the works that I was able to pull were these two works: the sower and the boy with the sickle. And obviously, you can see this is very different artwork than what we think of when we think of Van Gogh. Touring inside the church isn't really per se a museum. It's more of an exhibit. They have several sketches that are not original; they're copies, but the works that he produced while he was in Etten. And then there are several boards that you can read both in Dutch and English about his time spent there in Etten. And one of the things that was interesting is you can see the organ. He actually mentions the organ in one of his letters to his brother. And the old clock mechanism that was on the tower. Now it's electronic, of course, when it was changed. But this is the original clock mechanism. They brought it down and restored it, and it's working now. But the clock face is what you see in the photo. No longer does it activate or run the clock on the tower itself. So the church is no longer a church. It's now this exhibit hall. And moving along to Noonan.
Are we doing this, following this trail of yours, geographically or chronologically?
Chronologically.
Excellent.
Chronologically. So we can see that he moves in. He's in Noonan. He moves around, and we're not following every step. We're just following chronologically places that are significant to him, because he moved with his parents back to Etten, or moved with his parents to Etten. He left Etten. His parents then moved to Noonan, and then he came back to Noonan, or came to Noonan, not back to Noonan, but moved to Noonan and lived with his parents for about 2 years in this vicarage. And this was the vicarage that the family stayed at. This building is still there, and there's not too many buildings you can actually see where Vincent lived still in existence. Most of them are gone, but this is one that's actually still physically present. You cannot go inside. It still belongs to the church, but it's there. And he moved there in 1883, and we're saying a claim to fame here is this where he created his first masterpiece. But he also created 25% of his works here in Noonan. So this was a significant place in Vincent's life. And you can actually still see from the outside his studio, where he did a lot of his still lifes, where he stored his works. This is directly behind the vicarage, so that building is still there. I can only imagine after he finished the Potato Eaters, he brought that canvas here to his studio. He may have even done some touch-up on the Potato Eaters here at this little studio. So I mean, these are. Do you feel?
I mean, it sounds as if you do. Do you actually feel, close to Vincent when you're in these sites?
Yes, some more than others. Especially if you can see the painting, and you have the painting in front of you, and you see it. You feel that connection. Other places where there are no paintings, you feel a connection, but maybe not as deep. But when you really see a painting and you see then and now between the two, and especially let's say an Arles, you really feel that. I feel that connection when I travel. So for me, it's quite exciting, but I'm also excited to share this with people and people that can't make this journey to see and learn more about Vincent van Gogh. Looking in as you travel through Nuenen, they have these boards, and these boards have text both in English and Dutch. But what's really cool is they actually have buttons you can push for a Dutch and English audio guide as well. And there's about 20 of these scattered throughout Nuenen. So you can see kind of what we're doing. You can see Vincent's painting or sketch, and you can see the real thing side by side. So so far out of all the ones I mentioned, you know, of the places or locations I mentioned, if you have the time and the resources to visit all these places, that's great. But let's say you didn't. The one place I definitely recommend seeing would be Nuenen, because it is a really good place to learn about Vincent and his life. And again, he created 25% of his works here in this town.
Okay. Mike, keep going. I'm just going to shut the window. I can hear there's a lorry outside making a lot of noise.
Okay, no problem. Looking at the then and now, this is a small cottage. Unfortunately, this exact cottage does not exist anymore, but it was very close in proximity to the cottage you see on the right. And it's of the same time period and of the same style and of a similar size. So although it's not identical, it's close enough where you could actually say, hey, this is what that building would have looked like at that point in time. The cottage that you see in the painting was actually the cottage where he painted the potato eaters. It was the Gogh family that lived there with another family. Two families lived in that house, and that's where he painted. Inside this dwelling is where he painted the potato eaters. Of course, as we saw earlier, the church, this was the church where his father was a minister, then and now. And I was fortunate enough to come here. It looks like it was kind of in the fall. I took this kind of in the winter, but it's close enough where you can imagine this is fairly close how it would have looked at that actually point in time. And then, of course, the vicarage, as we mentioned earlier, then and now, you can see not much has changed. It's the exact same building with almost every detail still intact.
Do you get the sense he was kind of, well, I suppose in modern terminology, blogging, because he's writing about his, or keeping a diary at least, of his sites, of, you know, where it was he lived and where his father worked, and do you get that kind of feeling he's kind of logging his own history?
He is, and he's doing this, I'm not sure if it's per se a diary, but he's writing continuously to his brother. So he's always writing notes to his brother and to his family members and to his friends. And that's what makes the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam so incredible. It's not just that they have 600 works by Van Gogh in total, but also that they have almost all of the letters that he sent to his family and that he received from his friends and family. And that's how we're able to detail his life in such fine detail because we have the history of these letters. This, of course, is the potato eaters. There are several versions of this painting. This version is from the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. There's another similar painting at the Kröller-Müller Museum in Otterlo, and then there's a sketch as well of this. But this is I think the most famous one. And it was only lit, his subjects were only lit by the light above the table. And for him, what he wanted to show was that connection between these farmers and their ability to eat. They were harvesting these potatoes during the day, and they were eating them at night. And he wanted to show that connection between these people, their labors, and living off the earth. And if you notice, too, it's a very kind of dark, almost monochromatic painting. There's not a lot of color going on here. Here are two other works that he produced while in Noonan: Poplars at Sunset, or the Poplars at Sunset, and the Old Church Tower in Noonan. And
Which
even
we
in this, you can see some of the kind of broader brushstrokes that he used in creating these paintings. And then there's the Vincent Center, or Vin Center. It's a play on words. This is a great little museum to go to. And in fact, if you're interested in learning about Van Gogh, not necessarily seeing the art, but if you want to learn about his life, not just in Noonan, this is a fantastic place to visit. And that's why I recommend Noonan as a whole, but this center is one of the places that if you're really into Vincent, you should visit. It was actually the old town hall. In it, what they've done is taken a lot of period pieces from Noonan, from the time where Van Gogh was, and they put this exhibit together. And on the left-hand side, you can actually see one of the looms. Vincent did a lot of looms when he was, painted a lot of people working with the looms when he was in Noonan. But you'll also see what the people were wearing at the time, what items they had in their houses at the time, and these are all period pieces from Noonan. So there's not many pieces that you can say directly Vincent actually touched or saw, but it's quite plausible that Vincent may have seen the former wear these clothes or these clogs, or it may very well be that he painted this loom. Like I said, we can't say for sure, but because it all came from Noonan, all around this time period, there is a connection there. And they do a marvelous job of kind of connecting these objects in a way with projections and with the with an audio guide and whatnot that does a really good job of presenting. There's also a movie inside, but this place is definitely worth going and visiting.
I should just say, for the benefit of those watching, that if you are watching from the event page, you should see top right-hand corner a Q&A button, and if you press that, you can actually write in with your questions. If Brian Seaman was watching us, he'd be asking about what the access is like for those with accessibility issues into the museum. It looks like it's on multiple levels. Has it got lifts?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But here is the original town registry for Noonan, and of course when he moved to Noonan and started to live with his parents, he was actually written into the town registry as a citizen, and then of course when he departed and left Noonan, his name was struck out. And this is the original book. So this is one of the original items that was actually that Vincent actually saw or probably even possibly touched. In there. In fact, this building was the former city hall for Noonan, or town hall for Noonan. So that's real interesting. And of course, they have a family tree. But the exhibit, I can't show you everything, but it's a really good exhibit to visit. And more than any place I've been, explains the details of his life in such a way that no other place I visit, even the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, doesn't explain the details of his life like this place does.
So
if you were going to order the letters, but it has, they did a really good job of putting this together.
If you were going to go to one place, then Noonan would be the place, because this is the hub of it, and
exactly,
and around it there are more sites, as it were, per square mile than anywhere else.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is definitely a place to visit. Going to the next place, going around Noonan, one of the things you can see is the city really participates in this whole Van Gogh movement. And this is a small little snack shop across from the Van Gogh Center, and it's called the Art Applicators, which means the potato eaters. So it's literally named after the painting. There's a little place down the street called the Coffee Drinkers. So you see a lot of this in play. And then one of the final things is they put together this bike path with these glowing in the dark elements that are lit up by black light. And what you see is the scene from Starry Night, the clouds swirling in the bike path.
So this is a photograph. This is outside, and
This is outside at night,
night.
and this is a bike path, and you see the little pebbles in it. They actually glow. They're actually lit up with black light, and the scenes are from Starry Night. That kind of swirls in the sky.
Excellent. How far does that go? Is it an extensive cycle path?
I think it goes for maybe about 6 kilometers or so.
Oh wow!
But there's obviously some parts that are lit up more than the other parts. So the next place that we go to is in Paris. Vincent moved there in 1886, and this is where he really transformed his style. He went to live with his brother Theo. They lived in Montmartre. This is not Montmartre, but you can see it from this photo. And they lived in a taller building similar to this. And this is where he started meeting other artists. And this is where the biggest change, what you see in his work, started. And to kind of do a then and now, this is only one of the only photo I have that I can actually show a painting of him with these windmills in Paris, and then how it looks now. And this is in the Montmartre area.
Well, I didn't realize there were so many windmills in.
Yeah, there were several.
Paris. Yeah.
To give you an idea, when shortly before he moved to Paris, this is a self-portrait of Van Gogh. And then about a year after he got to Paris, this is a self-portrait of Van Gogh.
Wow. Yes.
So you can really clearly see the difference. You can see the difference not just in the colors. He's using on the portrait before he moved to Paris more of these earth tones. And then on the right, you're seeing an explosion of colors. Almost every color in a rainbow you're seeing in this image. But you're also seeing a fundamental shift in what he's doing. It's almost a pointillist drawing, and of course, or a pointillist painting. And of course, Vincent is classified as a post-impressionist artist. The Impressionists were there in the the 1870s. The Monet, the Manet. The group that he associated with were in the late 1880s and 1890s, and that was the post-impressionist movement. And we'll go a little bit over some of the people that he hung around with, the artists he hung around with, a little bit later in a few slides. But I think just comparing these two, because these paintings were painted within about a year's period of his life, and just that transformation was major. From there, you start seeing, works by Van Gogh that looks like this. A lot more light, not this dark and dreary Netherlands paintings that we saw previously. There's a lot more color, and again, you see more of this pointillist works going in his work, all of his art in Paris. And if you look, and you just see the details on here, it's quite incredible. Another one from Paris. You see the subject completely changed. A much beautiful, clear, a bright, sunny day. Instead of people working, you're seeing, people courting. You're seeing people in the park. Just completely different, not only in style, but the subjects themselves as well. And this all came about by these individuals and people he met. People like Émile Bernard or Paul Signac or Paul Gauguin. These are people that kind of changed his view and how he painted. To give you an idea, about the same time that he created the Potato Eaters. Now, it's not exactly the same day. He did it in 1885. This was painted by Paul Signac in between 1886 and 1887. But it's not that far apart, right? It's only about a year's time difference between he painted the Potato Eaters and when Paul painted this. But you can just see the difference, and even some of the similarities in the previous paintings we saw from Vincent. This is, of course, the pointillist work. This has a lot more light. In fact, if this was a photo, you'd even say that the window would be overexposed, right, as opposed to underexposed, which is what we saw in the Potato Eaters. You're seeing, of course, different people as well. You're seeing now wealthy individuals with servants.
Oh,
So
right.
this is in stark contrast with what Vincent did with the potato eaters.
Is that an indication that his fortunes have gone up in the world?
No, unfortunately not. That never changed for Vincent, unfortunately. He only sold one painting in his entire life.
Right.
And now the paintings are actually some of the most valuable paintings in the world.
Yeah.
But you can see how a painting like this and how his friendship with Paul Signac changed what he did. Looking at Gauguin, Paul Gauguin was another friend of his. This was actually painted in Arles, I think, not in Paris. But you can still see how some of his influence in the works that he painted in Arles is reflected by the works of Paul Gauguin. So these people had a profound impact on his style and his painting and on his life. And the last one is Emile Bernard. This was painted in the late 1880s. But again, you can see this style and how Vincent incorporates some of this style in his later paintings. So now we move from Paris.
Did you get when you were in Paris, or when you've been to Paris? I mean, do we know roughly where it was that they used to gather? Was there a particular bar where they all used to hang out, or?
I don't know that. That's one place I haven't been yet, and that's one place that I'll probably work on the next time I'm going to Paris, is to include more of what Vincent did in Paris. I don't have a page built yet for that, and I have small bits and pieces of Paris, but not to the extent which I have the other cities, including Arles or the cities in the Netherlands. So I don't know the answer to that, but that's obviously one thing.
That's a project in hand.
Yes. So this is an ongoing work. This will continue. The posts I have now and within the next week or so is not going to be the end of these posts. They're going to continue.
And these as it stands at the moment, most of these elements are already up on your site on mikestravelguide.com.
That's correct. Most of these elements are up now. We do not have a Paris section up yet, but we do have the museums and the places that I mentioned thus far. The next step, of course, in his career and his movement would be in Arles. He moved to Arles in 1888, and you can even see this transformation from Paris to Arles. He's moving a little bit away from the pointillist, where he had, like I said, had used and signed the pointillist by Signac. He's moving away from that a little bit. You still see some elements, but you're kind of seeing this movement. What I showed you with the paintings from Paul Gauguin and from Emile Bernard. Looking at then and now, we have the Café Terrace at night, then and now. I remember exactly when I was there in Arles, seeing and taking this photo. And just recently, just this past week, I went to the Kröller-Müller Museum and saw this painting for the very first time. For me, seeing both of these are events that I'll take with me throughout my life. These were very exciting moments for me to see both of these.
I love that. I love that then and now thing that you've been doing with it.
Yeah, it's really cool. You can see this bridge as well over the Rhone. The bridge itself, the structural part has changed, obviously.
They put in some thicker beams for the traffic, I think.
Exactly. Thicker beams for automobiles. But the stairs and the landing, you can still see, exactly what Vincent saw back then. It's virtually the same. The light post is gone, unfortunately, but the most of it's still there. You can see this old windmill that was converted into a house, and obviously it was in a little bit better shape when Vincent made this painting. The roof now on the lean-to is gone. The overhang over the door is gone, but you can still see the stairs. Yeah. You can still see the brick and stone in his painting, and the brick and stone now. You can see the little window. You can see the little chimney. There are a few more houses now nearby. You can't see into the valley like you could when Vincent was there painting. But you know, these things, a lot of these buildings are still there, and just comparing them is quite an
Wow.
incredible
Yeah.
experience. There is one note: the green sky. This is not how he originally painted this. The green color came in over time, and the paint faded over time. Originally, it would have been blue, very similar to what you see in the photo.
And the landscape in the background, blue. I'm guessing that's not hills of lavender.
Probably not, but you know, you can see sometimes where the hills kind of turn blue. If you look at my photo, it has kind of a blue tint to it as well, somewhat. But yeah, it's possible it may have been a darker green. But you know, unfortunately, a lot of these colors are fading on the works of art, and that's something, unfortunately, yeah, that's going to probably continue to fade and change over time, unfortunately for us. And this is the view from the
Oh,
hospital
wow.
balcony when he was in Arles. This is where he went when he cut off part of his ear, and he decided to do a work of art of the garden. And you can still quite keenly see that this is the same place.
And it's still in the center of Arles?
Yeah, it's still in the same place that it was originally.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
believe now, I'm not sure if it's a museum
I don't
or
mean
what.
has
It's been a while since we've been there, but we went and obviously took this photo. We were keen on kind of following where he went. We were kind of pressed for time, so we did not go inside of this, but we tried to hit as many of the places that we could to do a then and now photographs of the different areas.
this looks like the tree on the right looks as if it's still the same tree in the same position. You sort of mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing, and you know, even look at the tree, but the shrubs. You see the three shrubs as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
you know, it's just incredible. You notice these little small details, and you know, it's still there, and you can see it's you know, a similar point in time. I mean, obviously there is, you know, some leaves, some brown leaves. We were there, I think, in the fall, and this was in the winter when he painted this. I think this was in December, but you know, it's not that far removed. You know, the only thing I didn't have is the guy walking on the bottom
Yeah.
level and on the upper level.
Yes, you should have waited until somebody walked along there.
You know, yeah, I should have, you know, hired a
Or
few people to
yeah,
stand there. You guys
yeah.
just stand here for a few minutes. Let me
Well,
take a
you
photo.
could have walked there and got Gail to take it.
Yeah. um, Looking at a few of his works, the old yellow house on the left. This is actually where he rented his room when he stayed in Arles. The painting on the right, of course, is his bedroom, and it's titled The Bedroom. Um, the bedroom, if you look kind of below the little table and the chair, you can see it's kind of more of a pinkish hue. Originally, the walls weren't blue; they were more of a purple color. Again, they've also faded over time. Some of the other significant works, of course, is Cafe Terrace at Night. This Cafe Terrace at Night is just an incredible image to see. One of the things that you don't see on the reproductions, we took several photos to try to get it, and I think we nailed it a little bit on a few of the close-ups. I don't have that included with this presentation, but the lamp that you see in the middle, right under the canopy, that sticks out about 1/8 of an inch. You know, which is about 3 millimeters for people that use the metric system, and you know, that's built up with a lot of paint, and you see details like this that you don't see on the internet as well, and these brush strokes and this really thick paint technique that he used to make some of these paintings three-dimensional in effect. You don't see that on here, and you don't see it on, like I said, reproductions, but when you visit the museums, you get to see in real life what they look like. You get to also see the old bridge. This is an incredible work as well. And then, of course, Starry Night over the Rhone. Unfortunately, this is a file I pulled off of Wikipedia. This is not one of my own photos. It's not quite as clear. Unfortunately, both times I saw this painting twice. Once in Amsterdam at the Van Gogh Museum for a special exhibit, and once in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. but unfortunately they don't allow you to take photos, so I was not able to produce my own photo of this. And then Auver, this is one of his, not his last painting, but one of the last paintings that he produced in 1890. This I think was produced about 4 to 5 weeks before he died in Auver. And Auver is one place that we have not been yet, so this is the only item that we have from Auver. Auver is just a little bit outside of Paris. So you can kind of see from the first few watercolors to some of the last paintings, we've kind of covered a large swath of Vincent's career and covered most of these genres and things that he's done between start to finish. Of course, now that we kind of went over this history and we walked through a lot of the places that Vincent had been, now where do you go to see some of these works? And that's what the next segment of this slideshow is. Of course, the best place to experience his work is in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. There's over 600 works there. It's an incredible place to go. One of the things, though, is they don't allow you to get too close to the artwork. It's all covered by glass, but you still can't get 2 feet away or so is about the closest you can get, or about 60 centimeters is the closest you can get to the paintings. They don't allow you to take photos inside the Van Gogh Museum. But it is the premier place to see works by Vincent van Gogh. They just recently redid the interior, of course, in time for the 125th anniversary of his death. And they have the artwork now arranged in a chronological order, which they didn't in the past. And one of the things they've done is you see these glass enclosures. You can see the front and the back of the painting.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And since Vincent was a very poor person, he used and reused a lot of his canvases. So a lot of his works will have 2 pieces on them. The main piece, and then, of course, a previous piece on the back side. And the Van Gogh Museum pulled a lot of these out and found the ones that had images on the back and allowed them to be displayed where you could see both sides. And that's the first time I've ever seen that displayed in a museum. So that's quite incredible. And like I said, it's a fantastic place to visit. I highly recommend anyone that's in Amsterdam, go see the Anne Frank House first, and then the second thing you got to see is the Van Gogh Museum. The next place is the Kröller-Müller Museum in Otterlo. Now, I don't have a map for this, but this is quite a ways away. This is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's actually in a national park. But they have 269 works by Van Gogh in total. I think about 88 paintings from Van Gogh.
So, when you say in the middle of nowhere, I mean, if you were, how would you get there? If you were visiting Amsterdam, let's say on a, you've flown there, so you would need to get public transport or a cab or something like that. How would you then get out to the Kröller-Müller Museum?
You would probably easiest to get there by a car that you would, possibly hire or rent. The other way, there is public transportation, but it's going to take you a while to get there, right? Because it's a train and then a bus and then another bus.
Okay.
Like I said, quite literally, this is in a national park, and you can pay to get your car in a national park, or you could park your car outside of a national park and then ride a bike. And this is one thing that's interesting. They have free bikes, so once you cross over and you're in the park, you can just take a bike off the rack and then bike it all the way through the park. And then you could leave it at the other end of the park. So that part, that's really nice. But like I said, it is a far ways out. But as far as seeing his works, they're enclosed in glass, but you can get literally with an inch away, and no one's going to say anything. Now, if you're there for an hour and whatnot, and you're touching it, yeah, the docents are going to say something. But we were able to get extremely close. Multiple times without anyone harassing us, and you can take photos and anything. So
excellent.
If you're
photos, but not with flash, presumably.
Not with flash, but you know,
Mm.
the Van Gogh Museum, you get your camera out there and they're hounding you down, and they'll make you delete the photos.
Yeah.
Here, you can take all the photos you want, and no one's saying anything. So it's a different experience. Obviously, they don't have the letters like the Van Gogh Museum does. They don't have as many works by Van Gogh, but they have an extremely high quality of works by Van Gogh, and it's a very friendly place to visit as far as, let's say, looking really close up at the painting and taking photos. And like I said, this is, you know, there are buses as well that come to this. There are tour buses as well that come to this. I don't have anything prepared because we haven't wrote the post yet on this museum. That's our next post. But I'd encourage anyone that's into Van Gogh to come and see the Kröller-Müller Museum. So if you are pressed for time but you want to see a lot about Van Gogh in the Netherlands, I would recommend doing the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, the Kröller-Müller Museum in Otterlo, and definitely going to Noonan and seeing those. If you see those three places, you'll have experienced a lot of Van Gogh's life and his artwork. And looking inside, this is what you see. It's a relatively old building, at least where the Van Gogh exhibits are located. There are newer buildings for the entrance and newer exhibits rooms now, but this is the older exhibit room. And like I said, this is definitely a place worth visiting.
I mean, it looks quite empty there. What sort of time of day were you there? Middle of the week? Or?
We got there right around noon. We were there on a Friday at noon, and we were there from noon till around 2:30 or 3. It was empty at this part, but it was because we waited to take the photo until there wasn't that many people here.
Right.
So there's people going in and out, but this museum has more. I mean, the Van Gogh is the backbone of the exhibit, and it's the main item of the exhibit. But there are also a lot of Signacs there as well. There's a lot of pointillist works there. They actually have one Seurat there that's quite incredible. They have an incredible collection at this museum for the post-impressionist and the pointillist works. So yeah, this is a fantastic museum to visit, and they have quite a large outdoor gallery as well, or outdoor exhibit with statues. So they have a statue garden, quite an extensive statue garden, and yeah, this is, like I say, a fantastic place to go. Next up on places to see in the Netherlands is the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam. They have 5 paintings by Van Gogh. Stedelijk Museum is a fantastic place to visit, but if you're, let's say, you know, are pressed for time or don't, you know, have a deep budget to visit a lot of museums, and you're into Van Gogh, this would be one that, you know, you could skip. But if you do have the time and you're into art and, you know, you want to see works by different artists, this is also a great place to visit. But like I said, you're only going to see 5 works at the most from Van Gogh, and it might even be less depending if some of them are on loan to other museums. But I just wanted to mention it because it's literally right across from the Van Gogh Museum. The last museum, this of course is one of the, you know, inside. This is actually underground. They actually have 2 portions to the museum. The old portion, which is the original red brick building, and then they built the new portion, which looks like a bathtub. And this is actually under the bathtub.
It does look like a bathtub, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. They actually refer to it as a bathtub as well. The other museum in Amsterdam, of course, is the Rijksmuseum. They have 2 paintings and 4 drawings. And again, this is a fantastic museum to visit, but if you're just looking at Van Gogh, you're going to see some. I put it in there because they do have a few works by Van Gogh, 6 in total. But if you're just looking for works by Van Gogh, this would be one place to skip. But this is an incredible museum on its own, and most of the works are from the Dutch Golden Age. And of course, you'll see the Nachtwatch or the Night Watch by Rembrandt. So if you're into art, this is a fantastic museum to visit. But like I said, we're looking at this, and I'm showing this on the preface of Van Gogh and what you can see. I want to let people know where you can see his works, but you know, if you're just looking at Van Gogh, this might be one to skip. If you like works of other genres of the Dutch Golden Age, this is a fantastic place to visit. And last but not least is the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. There's 27 works by Van Gogh there. They have an incredible collection as well there. They have really high quality works by Van Gogh. It's actually a former train station, and going inside, they also don't allow you to take photos inside, but I shot this photo of not of the work, but of the building. This is an incredible place to go if you want to see French Impressionist and Post-Impressionist work. Also, they have some of the pointillist work that you can see, and a good collection of Van Gogh's work, and a lot of the pieces from what he did in his time in France. Not all, but a lot of works from when he was in France is here. The Starry Night over the Rhone, the one I showed you earlier that he made over in Arles, is here. And of course, leave you with one of his more famous works. This is Starry Night. This was actually produced in Saint-Remy when he was in the mental institution, and we have not been to Saint-Remy yet, but I felt it to be one of the things that I should include with this presentation, because for me it's one of the most incredible pieces. Unfortunately, if you live in Europe, this painting is not in Europe. It's in the United States at the Met in New York. I was fortunate to see it when it was on loan to the Van Gogh Museum, along with Starry Night over the River Rhone, and that was an incredible time to visit the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam.
Wow.
And that's it.
Excellent. Brilliant.
So,
well done, Mike. What a that's a fantastic. That's a tour de force, and obviously there are still holes to fill in. So places to go, places to make some more then and now images.
Yeah, and that's part of our goal of following Van Gogh, following his life through Europe, and cataloging that, and most of not all of the photos that you saw were ours, but a lot of them were ours. So we're taking photos in any place we can. The photos of what you saw then, now, those are all our photos. Some of the paintings we pulled off of Wikipedia or Wikicommons. I don't have that extensive of a library of all those paintings. And unfortunately, a lot of the paintings, especially the dark ones, have glass in front of them. And with the glare, it's almost impossible to shoot. So, and then, like I said, a lot of museums don't allow you to take photos as well. So.
Yes, I was at the refectory where the Last Supper is in Milan in January, and exactly the same thing. We were there in a private group. We've been actually, as a result of somebody knowing the Minister of Tourism, they opened it up for us it was a Monday when it's normally closed. So we had this private viewing, and they were still really, really beady about any device you pulled out of your pocket. They were staring at my audio recorder because I was recording the guy who was showing us around, because they just weren't too sure whether it might take an image or not. So yeah, it's fair enough. They get very beady about that. Not least because, in fact, it's not. I think the issue that many museums have and art galleries have is not so much the copyright thing, although that is clearly there, and it's a way for them to be able to raise revenue if the only sort of images are their official ones. But it's also a protection thing, because as we mentioned earlier, that what they're really worried about is people taking flash, and flash is known to degrade the images, and it's no good saying don't take flash, because if you're like me, half the time when you raise the thing up, you've forgotten that you set it to automatic as opposed to no flash, and it goes off when you don't want it to. So yeah, it's swings and roundabouts. You understand why, but it's for our benefit in many ways.
Yeah. So, but the Italians are really tough. The Italians are tougher than anyone. They don't want anyone taking photos of anything along your way, which makes it for someone, people like us that are trying to document and show people where to go. It makes it harder, unfortunately, especially, like I said, especially the Italians. They're the worst for not allowing photography. But yeah, I've been fortunate enough in my life to make this journey and see a lot of these things, and yeah, I'm glad I was able to share it today with everybody and let them see this.
Were you a Van Gogh fan before, or did you become one during?
No, I was, here, I'll tell you one story. When I was a student at the university, my last semester, I was required by my curriculum to take an art history class. And, you know, I enjoyed all my classes at the university. A lot of people only enjoyed their curriculum, or some people didn't enjoy anything. But for me, whether it was microbiology or sociology or engineering, which is what my background is in, I enjoyed everything. And I
should say to everybody
class,
that Mike is the original Renaissance man.
Yeah, well, I entered this art history class with a real open mind, but you know, I wasn't sure. Now, the fortunate thing, since I was a senior and I was a graduating senior, and it was my last semester, I got to have priority. And there was this professor. His name was Fred Daspit. He passed away, I think, a year ago. And this man single-handedly is responsible for me liking and loving art. And he introduced me not only to Van Gogh, but the whole Renaissance movement, the French Impressionist movement, the Post-Impressionist movement. This guy was single-handedly responsible for my love of art and me traveling. I would travel before I met Fred Daspit, but it's changed the way I travel and the things I do when I travel. So this one man had a profound influence on my life. So for anyone out there, I know Fred's not there anymore, but anyone out there, I definitely thank Fred Daspit for you know, his teaching me the things he did.
We should dedicate this edition of the Travel Coffee Break to him. We'll put it in the notes. So okay.
So yeah, and like I said, I learned about his death about a year ago. I was certainly saddened because that guy had a huge influence on my life.
Excellent. All right, Mike, that's a brilliant presentation you've done this week. I'm very grateful. We haven't had a presentation from you for a while, so it's great to make up for that gap. Not sure what we're going to do next week. I will have some guests lined up, hopefully, and if you go to the travelcoffeebreak.com website, then it'll be showcased there. It'll be promoted there. And I'll put that up as soon as I can. And Mike, hopefully you'll be around next week, will you?
I should be, yes.
Okay. Is our new time of 3 o'clock in Holland better for you? Is it more convenient, or is it
It's probably less convenient. Yeah, I'll attend as much as I can, but it definitely, for me personally, is less convenient.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll have to find a way.
For me, it would have been better to go the other way.
Yeah, into the evening.
But let's see how it works. And like,
let's see how it works.
Here,
exactly.
But I certainly can't guarantee.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next week. Bye for now.
Bye.